Good evening, and welcome to the Miracle of Prosperity, where we explore all aspects of prosperity: financial prosperity, physical and logistical prosperity, including health and vibrancy, relationship prosperity, inner prosperity, such as inner peace, and every other aspect of prosperity. For in truth, they are all one. And tonight, as we know, prosperity is all around us, and prosperity is equally and abundantly available. Our task is to remove all the barriers to this prosperity that it might flow to us and through us. So I am Reverend Jim Webb, the author of The Soul of Prosperity, senior minister of the Tacoma Metaphysical Chapel in Silver Spring, Maryland, and author of a number of other books as well. And I will be leading us through this journey tonight. One of the things we will cover tonight is how one of our hidden saboteurs to the prosperity that God wills for us is the inner child. So the title of tonight's show is Bringing Up Baby, training your inner child to allow the prosperity that God wills. You see, the inner child has been trained to deny the prosperity that is God's will. And so the inner child has to be retrained to allow the prosperity that is God's will. The inner child may have received some overt and many subtle messages over time. Messages of unworthiness, messages of ineligibility, messages of not enoughness. And although many of these messages have not been conscious, they have had a pernicious effect on our ability to accept the prosperity that God wills for us. So we're going to uncover and unpack this, and we're going to learn how to neutralize the inner saboteur of the inner child, and how to retrain the inner child to accept the prosperity that God wills. And when I say we, I speak not only of me, but I'm also speaking of one of our favorite guests on the Miracle of Prosperity, and that is Edward Miller. Edward is the author of Soul Power, which is, if you haven't had a chance to pick it up, check it out. It's a wonderful book on using spiritual tools to connect us all with the energy of our soul that connects us with the highest power possible for healing and for our good. So I want to introduce Edward Miller, although many of you know him as one of our favorite guests. So good to see you, Ed. Welcome.
So good to see you too. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for agreeing to join us tonight.
Yeah. Well, I love opportunities to have communication with you and have commune and speak from the heart and be in the heart. And we have beautiful conversations.
Yes, and we have a wonderful one in store for our viewers tonight. One of the things I want to talk about is the inner child and some of the messages, conscious or unconscious, that the inner child has received, and how they can how they can enhance our ability to receive prosperity or reduce our ability to receive prosperity. And I, when I was working with this, I realized I've done a lot of work with John Bradshaw in his book Homecoming, Healing and Championing the Child Within. I've done a lot of regression work and a lot of healing work on this aspect of myself. And I asked myself, what was the core experience that I can consciously remember that caused me to feel ineligible for prosperity? And I came up with two things that happened that really were focal points for my healing journey. The first focal point was quite conscious to me, and this was when I was in the second grade and got glasses. Somehow it had seeped into my consciousness that something was wrong with me because my vision was impaired and that glasses made me ugly and therefore ineligible for love. And that was quite devastating to me when I realized that I had carried that idea around for years, that I was unattractive and unlovable. And of course, it came back in my adolescence when I was really anxious to get contact lenses and when I felt proud again and attractive again, and I felt as if I was a master of myself once again when getting contact lenses. And then there was a deeper thing that was at the root of all of that. That deeper thing at the root of all of that was that I was an unwanted child.
Mm.
And as I delved into my inner child more, I realized I was unwanted. I was an accident. I was a mistake. Or so I felt. And these were catalysts for deep healing that caused me to open to the light of grace in the deepest ways possible and in an ongoing way over years and years and years. But these were the ideas that I carried that caused me to unconsciously reject the prosperity that has been God's promise. And the reason that I wanted to share this with you and the audience is because we all may have a story like this. That story may be conscious to us, or it may be unconscious to us. But the grace of God, which is infinitely powerful and available in infinite supply, is available to address those parts of us that have been wounded from our childhood to accept the prosperity that is God's gift to us and our natural birthright. So, Ed, I just wanted to put that out on the table because I know that you do a lot of spiritual work on this as well.
I do.
I also know that you are an expert in Ho'oponopono. And that's one of the tools of many that I have used to address the wounds of my inner child. So, can you discuss how Ho'oponopono could work in a situation such as this?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Ho'oponopono is a perfect tool for re-engaging in developing a more intimate and nurturing relationship with your inner child. You know, the mantra is, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. That's the mantra. And that mantra is not spoken to anything in the world. At some level, it's spoken to your inner innocence. You know, when I think of, you know, the 10-year-old you that, you know, had to deal with the glasses and the wanting to be enough, and then realizing that you were, you know, that you were not wanted. I mean, I can imagine, I can feel for that little boy, because I too, you know, was a little boy that was awkward And I
Mm-hmm.
lived in a family where being bright and talented was, was what was appreciated. And you were
Mm-hmm.
bragged about because you were bright and intelligent. And
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't bright, or I didn't seem to be demonstrating bright
Mm-hmm.
and intelligent or talented, it seemed in any way. I think my mother used to stretch to try to find things she thought I might be talented at. But,
Mm-hmm.
generally, I just was an awkward kid in a family of super minds. And
Mm-hmm.
I just felt very inferior, down to the root. I felt my mind didn't work right. I was so distracted all the time. I just was
Mm-hmm.
never able to get good grades and accomplish big things, and that's just how I saw myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just like you, by the time I got 14 years old, 15 years old, I started getting a glimpse of a greater me,
Mm-hmm.
of a more competent me, a more capable me. But that child that was wounded, bullied, picked on, disregarded, was always there. He's still there now.
Mm-hmm.
He's still there, but I have a different relationship with him now.
Mm.
But that
Tell
that
us
child,
about how you transformed or established a different relationship with that
yeah, well,
child within.
that's thank you for asking that. I for very many years, I have been a very successful man. I've had a lot of accomplishments. I've um, done a lot of great things, but I
Yes.
never,
Yes.
Reverend Jim, I never gave myself any credit for anything. I felt
Mm.
everything I did was lacking or not enough. So I never felt the feeling of being, enough or being
Mm-hmm.
all that. I never
Mm.
was willing to even give myself that feeling. So
Mm-hmm.
when I accomplished something, first thing I would do is I start deconstructing it. How it could have been this, I should have been that, and it wasn't what it should have been. That's how I worked. I was in that
Mm-hmm.
automatic mode. So everything in my life was deficient. Everything
Yes.
looked deficient
So
and
because you were
problematic.
different, yes. So because you were different, you believed that your difference was
Yes,
deficient, and you saw the world through the lens of deficiency
no
and not
question about it.
enoughness
No
because
question
of
about
your
it.
inner not enoughness.
Everything seemed deficient to me. Now,
Mm.
what the Ho'oponopono did for me is that, Ho'oponopono is an interesting practice because, as I said
Mm.
before, it is a relationship with yourself.
Yes.
It goes beyond, oh, you look so nice today, or you're so smart. It goes beyond it gets to the love. I had
Yes.
to learn to fall in love with that little boy.
Mm.
The little boy that was sometimes sensitive, that little
Mm-hmm.
boy that sometimes was hysterical, that little boy that was
Yes.
sometimes irrational
Yes.
and over the top.
Yes.
I had to learn to care for him
Mm-hmm.
because if I wasn't going to care for him, I would always be in judgment of him.
Mm.
I had behaviors that I was always, oh, if I was just like this, or you know what I'm talking about. I was always
Oh, absolutely.
depreciating myself and
Mm-hmm.
idealizing an Edward Miller that didn't even exist.
Yes. And
So,
then what happens when we minimize ourselves and ideate some illusory figure of perfection that is a cartoon is we believe ourselves to be undeserving of our good, and we find a myriad of ways to deny, run from, or sabatage
well,
our good.
Reverend Jim, I was an imposter.
Mm.
Good things were happening for me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't, I didn't want to, I couldn't take credit for them because if I
Mm-hmm.
took credit from that means that maybe I'm not the deficient, wounded child that I thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
So the Ho'oponopono was drilled into my psyche. I started using it as my meditation. So
Okay.
and I even created and created meditations that were about drilling this new idea of myself into my psyche. So I would for years just put on earphones that I created with my meditations, which are I sell on my website. But those
Mm-hmm.
websites are nothing more than opportunities to feel nurtured and loved and learn what really forgiveness was. Forgiveness is the greatest thing of all because whatever I'm believing, even if it's not in my best interest, even if it's a negative, I can forgive myself for bearing it and
Mm-hmm.
not make myself wrong. And then go
Yes.
back to the child and tell the
Yes.
child how special they are and how
Yes.
unique their perspective is and how
Yes.
valuable they are. But
Yes.
that's what I had to do. And over
Yes.
time, Reverend Jim, that changed my self-esteem.
Yes.
And as it
Yes.
changed my self-esteem, I started
Mhm.
relating to not only to people differently, but the world seemed to be different to me.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, once you start really being nurturing and loving and
Hmm.
forgiving to yourself,
Yes.
somehow you feel like you can do it to everybody.
Mm.
Everybody's off the hook.
Yes.
Nobody's wrong.
Hmm.
But
A
it really
Course
took
in Miracles says, lesson 108 says, giving and receiving are one. And
yes,
once you receive something, you can give it freely because you open
yes,
yourself to a divine flow. And when you receive the unconditional love from Source due to your connection with Source, and once you receive a sense of oneness with Source, which is in essence a sense of forgiveness, because forgiveness
yes,
is an
yes.
inner state. You can project that out onto everyone you see.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
But it really is a moment by moment awareness of your
Mm-hmm.
relationship with that innocent side of you. You
Mm.
know, I can still see patterns. When I get triggered, I can
Mm-hmm.
sometimes go back to those old feelings,
Yes.
and I can feel that in my body, those old feelings. But what the
Yes.
Ho'oponopono has done for me is it allows me to be aware of that and not
Yes.
grab onto it, not cling
Mm.
to it, not take it into a story, not make it something that
Mm.
I have to prove or substantiate in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I can just say, okay, I can be kind to myself now. This
Mm-hmm.
is a little overwhelming right now, but I'm perfect. Thank you for
Okay.
the awareness that there's nothing wrong here. So
Uh-huh.
that's how I've changed the relationship with myself, and it has changed me on multiple levels.
That is wonderful. I want to delve into that a little bit more. And by summary, I want to just, what I heard you say was that when you apply Ho'oponopono, when you find yourself slipping down like chutes and ladders, when you find yourself slipping down a chute into the old consciousness of the inner child's not enoughness, the inner child's unworthiness, the inner child's awkwardness, the inner child's self criticism, and the inner child's self condemnation, when you go down one of those chutes, you can catch yourself.
Yeah.
Apply Ho'oponopono to that part of yourself that is in pain,
Yes.
and you can neutralize the self sabotaging behaviors that had previously been a reflex. Am I
Absolutely.
hearing you correctly?
You're hearing me perfectly. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
You're neutralizing it, and also you're re-nurturing.
Yes.
when I was this little boy and I was feeling so awkward and
Yes.
insufficient and not good enough,
Mm-hmm.
I that's all I knew. That's and I
Yes.
and I used to, the feeling of that felt anxious and made me feel shy and made me feel isolated at times.
Mm-hmm.
I still have those feelings when I feel shy and isolated sometimes. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that it's a reflection of these old energies. So what I'm able
Yes.
to do is in that moment, Reverend
Mm-hmm.
Jim, I apologize. Please forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
Please forgive me. There's really nothing here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a memory.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for this awareness. Thank you for allowing me to be um, aware of how beautiful I am and how capable I am. And you know what? I'll say something else. Doing the whole Ho'oponopono all these years, I now love saying nice things about me. I now love nurturing me. And there was a time when I couldn't say anything nice about myself because I felt it
Yes.
felt fake. It didn't
Yes.
feel, quite authentic. But now
Yes.
I tell my wife all the time, I brag about what a good husband I am and how she's so lucky to have, those are feelings. I know they're just
Uh-huh.
silly, but
Uh-huh.
it's a feeling that I never had before.
And it's not silly, it is self love,
It is
which is
self-love.
not the narcissistic self love that we think of when we think of self love. It is a balanced, healthy, and
Yes.
holy appreciation of ourselves and our holiness. And I want to
Reverend
dive
Jim, one
into
more thing. I
one
just want to
thing.
say this. It's giddy.
Yes.
It's giddy
Mm-hmm.
because it feels so warm when you're loving yourself in that way. I never knew that feeling before.
It's an ecstatic love
Yes.
akin to the love that God has for us that sends us into ecstasy. For
Yes.
love is ecstasy. And when we allow that love down into the very core of our being, when we allow that love down into our essence, it triggers the ecstasy that is our natural
I
state.
agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah. So I want to explore something a little bit more. And one of the things that we do here is we put a lot of our content in the context of A Course in Miracles so that A Course in Miracles can become accessible. Lessons 121 and 122 of A Course in Miracles are: forgiveness offers all I want, and forgiveness is the key to happiness.
Yes.
And the reason that I want to bring those two most powerful lessons into this conversation is because when we work with Ho'oponopono, we are sending the healing, loving, nurturing, transformative, embracing light of unconditional love
Unconditional
to
love.
that child.
Yes.
And when we are sending that to that child, and when that child is receiving that, that child is put in a different state, the state of forgiveness. Because
Yes.
forgiveness is not a verb that we do to something or someone outside of us. Forgiveness is a state of oneness where we realize our innocence and that
Yes.
there is nothing to forgive. So when we work with the inner child with Ho'oponopono, and we work with the idea, I forgive you. What we are really saying to that inner child is, I release all the judgments, criticisms, and beliefs in your not enoughness that I have held against you. I set you free. I see you whole. I see you as love. I see you as lovable. And that is what the inner child and each of our inner saboteurs and every part of our consciousness has always wanted to hear and feel and be. So it is no mystery to me why you would go into ecstasy. Does that make any
It
sense?
does. It makes all the sense in the world. I have grown my inner child up. I grew him
Yes.
up because
Yes.
he was tentative, he
Mm-hmm.
was afraid,
Yes.
and I think my new relationship with him has made him more courageous, more
Yes.
willing to love, willing to
Yes.
be vulnerable. I mean, I
Yes.
really felt like, I want to. I don't know if I'm going to turn on my phone while we're talking, but I have a photograph on my phone of when I was a fat little kid. And for many years, I didn't want to see. Every time I saw that picture of me, I was like, oh, that kid.
Mm.
He was unhappy.
Yes.
Now, when I see that kid, I'm just I feel so much affection for him.
Yes. 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 I have a vision board. I call it my core issues vision board because I have a number of different vision boards for different aspects of my life. And my core issues vision board has pictures of me in the key stages of my childhood and adolescence. That's you as the awkward kid?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But that,
And what I do with that vision board as my core issues vision board is the pictures are, of course, in the center. The symbol for spirituality on the top, the thank you God for healing and transformation on the bottom, and on the side, on the left side, facing the board is the love of God I now receive causes me to love and accept myself completely and unconditionally. And then on the right side of the pictures is thank you God for this feeling of unconditional love, safety, comfort, security, and fullness. I am
I
healed.
have a
I am
question for
whole.
you.
Yes.
You mentioned unconditional love again. And
Yes.
I'm hoping that your audience really understands what unconditional love is for yourself. It's a whole different kind of game than I
Yes.
ever had considered. Um,
Yes.
it is so free.
Yes.
I'm so quick to let myself off the hook now. And a lot of people say, "Oh, you're so." I am so quick to forgive myself for any transgressions,
Yes.
anything that might be wrong or seen as wrong.
Yes.
I am
Mhm.
so ready to say, "Oh, you did a good job. Oh, you
Mhm.
and that you didn't want to do that, but you made it happen." And I'm encourage myself,
Mhm.
and I don't find opportunities, which I used to discourage myself and to
Yes.
terrorize my. I don't do that anymore. I'm
Yes.
not going to treat my
Beautiful.
child that way anymore. He doesn't deserve
Yes.
that.
Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. So we've learned what we can do to support our inner child, to put our inner child in a state of constant grace, a state of constant deservingness, a state of readiness to say yes to the prosperity that God offers.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the break, we're going to discuss that some more, and we're going to take questions from the audience. And we've got a couple already. So we're going to go to break now, and we'll be back and we'll discuss some more here on the New Thought Media Network.
Very good.
Happy birthday, Camp Cedar Ridge. We invite you to come camp and celebrate our first year while in sacred service. May 19th through the 21st, we'll be restoring our beloved meditation labyrinth. Come camp with us for the weekend, and all we'll ask you to cover are the meals. Vegetarian, vegan, and gluten-free options are available. That's the weekend of Friday, May 19th to Sunday, May 21st. You can bring your own tent or act fast and register for one of our glamping tents or bunkhouse beds while supplies last. We do have limited indoor accommodations for an additional fee. Find more details and registration at campcedarridgeor.org/lab.
And we're back here on the New Thought Media Network with Edward Miller, author of Soul Power. So we've had one question already, and we can work with this question. Both you and I mentioned adolescence and how adolescence both amplified the experiences of the inner child and was a catalyst for a deeper healing of these experiences. And we're in good company because in one of Marianne Williamson's books, she talked about how her awakening in adolescence brought out some of her inner child issues and also was a catalyst for the healing of her inner child issues. With her, she realized that at the age of adolescence, she became aware of her sexual power, her
Mm-hmm.
sexuality, and her ability to literally work with energy as a result of the sexual energy that she began to feel and how she saw that sexual energy having an impact on her world. And that was fascinating to me because I had never related my adolescence to coming into awareness of that new energy, which triggered both shame and a sense of power. And so Tierney asked what happened at 14 with you as well, Ed, that triggered you into a deeper awareness of your inner child, those issues, and the healing resulting from that?
What a good question. At 14 years old is when I finally got a girlfriend.
All
I
right.
finally trusted that somebody else might really think that that I'm nice or attractive or was worthy.
Mm-hmm.
And that was mind-blowing to me.
Mm.
It opened up my heart, but when your heart opens up and your vulnerability opens up, it also opens up all your wounded areas too.
Yes.
So I remember feeling very devoted
Mm-hmm.
to this young lady at 14
Mm-hmm.
years old, but
Yes.
very afraid of her
Mm.
and very cautious about being open and vulnerable and trusting to her,
Mm-hmm.
because I was very afraid that if she really saw who I really was, she'd see that I was not somebody worthy of her care and
Mm-hmm.
affection. So to be honest with you, I think at 14 years old is when I started pretending.
That's when you believed yourself to be an imposter because the inner
Yes,
child was telling you were something other than that which you
yes,
needed to portray in order to have what you needed to survive in the world.
yes, yeah,
That's when you put on your mask
yes.
because you said, I must mask the true me because if they only knew the true me, they wouldn't want me. They
They
wouldn't
wouldn't
like
want
me.
me. Exactly.
Okay. Okay. So that was not only us putting on our armor over our heart in order to do battle with what we believed was a wicked, hostile world that we believed would attack us because we believed we were wrong because there were all those attack thoughts in our minds. And in the context of A Course in Miracles, attack thoughts attack our invulnerability. Our soul is invulnerable. Our soul is eternal. Our soul is infinitely powerful. Our soul is infinitely beautiful. Our soul is infinitely capable. And our soul is infinitely worthy. But every time we have one of these attack thoughts and put armor, energetic armor over ourselves,
Yes,
we believe that we have to put on a different face. For we believe that if we were attacked, we would be destroyed. And that limits the power and the light that God gave us. And therefore, it limits the ability of that innate power and light to attract its reflection in the form of prosperity.
exactly. Exactly. As I said before, I did a lot of pretending. And you
Mm,
can't be prosperous when all you're doing is pretending.
yes.
And not until not until I stopped pretending,
Mm-hmm.
did I realized how abundantly blessed I was.
Mm,
Because
mm-hmm.
pretending is a it's a fake facade that you
Yes.
put up so that people can't see your soft
Yes.
spots.
It's an illusion that you believe helps you to navigate
Oh,
the
absolutely an
illusion
illusion.
of the
Yes.
world outside of us. But an illusion and an illusion are two false things, and two false things cannot create something real. Amen?
Yes.
That's like 0 and 0 equaling something.
Yeah, that doesn't work. You're right.
That doesn't work, right?
No.
And so the first thing that it sounds like you did, and that we all can do, is to nurture that part of us that we felt was vulnerable and therefore needed to be protected, needed to be shielded off from the world. But guess what? When we shielded that part of ourselves off from the world, we blocked its ability to attract prosperity, and we blocked its ability to be the bright light that would create prosperity.
Yes.
And so when we nurture and heal and honor and recognize that part of ourselves, the inner child, we re-empower it
Yes.
to be the magician that it was born to be
Absolutely.
and to allow the, go ahead.
One other thing I wanted to say is that a lot of it was I didn't want to feel the feelings. I didn't want
Yes.
to feel inadequate. I didn't want to
Mm.
feel like I wasn't smart enough. I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
anybody else to see it. So I was
Mm-hmm.
always cautious and tentative.
Mm-hmm.
And that you can't be prosperous and think big and dream big and touch hearts in a really important way when you're busy guarding yourself in every way you can.
Yes.
And as I said before, pretending.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
I didn't
Because your
even know
light
what my
can't get out.
authentic
You
self
know
really
how I
was.
see it, Ed? You know how I see it, Ed? I see it often as going out. You know those like night things with the metal breastplates and the big metal helmets and the sword and the shield to shield us from pain, the sword to fight what we believe to be a hostile universe, and the breastplate and the armor all the way from top to bottom. I see that as, how can you turn a somersault in that
No.
when you were born to turn somersaults and do cartwheels? So when we put on that armor, how can we maneuver in the world? We are ready for battle. And when we put out that energy, I must battle the world.
Yeah.
What do we create in our outer world? We create an outer world that attacks us because that's what we expect. And we
Yeah.
become addicted to that attack and defend. There's a lesson 153. If I defend myself, I am attacked.
Yes.
And what that lesson is all about is how we often feel vulnerable. Therefore, we must protect ourselves because our inner child feels vulnerable.
Yes.
And therefore, we must defend ourselves from attack. And quite often, we do a preemptive strike.
Oh yeah.
We attack the world first. So before the world can attack us, how many of us have ever broken up with somebody before they broke up with us? Ended a friendship before they ended it with us because we thought we weren't eligible for that friend anyway because we weren't good enough. Amen?
Yes.
So what you're telling us, Ed, and thank you so much, is that you had to nurture that part of you until it felt strong enough.
And also, let me say one other thing. I also had to allow that child to express itself.
Yes.
I had to allow the child, if the child was frustrated, if the child felt insecure, if the child felt rejected or betrayed or dishonored, I had to feel those feelings.
Yes.
I couldn't push them away anymore. I couldn't run from them anymore. I had to allow my child to express itself, and then I nurture it then.
Absolutely. That in my books on prosperity, there's that chapter on emotional release, which says, give every part of you permission to express.
Yes.
And what you're doing is express means pressing out. There's pain in there. There's doubt in there. There's shame in there. And when you express that, there's frustration, there's anger in there. When you express that, you press it out. You release it. And when you release it, it creates a void into which the light of God can flow, because the energy, unlike love, has blocked that light.
Yes.
And every time that light flows into a place that was blocked by your judgments, by your inner child's shame or doubt or fear, you become filled with more light. Your inner child feels more nurtured, more confident, more divine, more holy, more capable.
Yes, sir.
And
yes, sir.
that inner child is almost then like Mighty Mouse. Remember when Mighty Mouse said, "Here I come to save the day." Or the super person within you, like Superman. You shift from being Clark Kent. This is a job for Superman.
Yes.
And you shift because you feel strong, you feel able, you feel capable, you feel worthy, you feel the truth, and you don't need to attack. You don't need to use your sword and shield to attack and defend anymore.
No,
Amen?
you don't. No, you don't.
Amen. And that is just beautiful, in one of the many ways that we can work with the energy of the inner child. You know, one of the ways I work with it, and all of my inner saboteurs, I work with them in the following way. I use a 5-word phrase: God, I let you in. I let you into this place where I have believed myself unworthy, inadequate, not enough, guilty, shameful, and therefore undeserving. And what that does for me, Ed, is it helps me to channel the light of God that is always flowing in infinite supply to that place within my consciousness that is in need of light, because that place within my consciousness has been calling out for light. Because any anger, any shame, any doubt, any fear is a call for love.
Yes.
And so by consciously channeling love to that place in consciousness, healing occurs,
Yes.
release occurs, transformation occurs, upliftment occurs. And that's one of the tools I use to support healing and championing the child within. There are so many
I
other.
just remembered something. You know, when you and
Yes.
I get together sometimes, we get giggly.
Yes. We're
And I
like boys.
realized that we are letting our children play with each other
Yes.
and not make no sense
Yes.
and care for each other
Yes.
and entertain each other
Yes.
because we don't talk about serious stuff.
Oh no.
We just talk about and I so appreciate our friendship because you do recognize my child and you do
Yes.
are aware of my vulnerabilities and you
Yes.
do allow me to be vulnerable,
Yes.
exposed to you my underbelly and when I'm
Yes.
feeling overwhelmed or whatever.
Yes.
That's a real relationship. That's a real friendship. Most of us
Yes.
in our relationships and our friendships, we have to do a lot of pretending. We have to pretend like we're
Yes.
strong. We have to pretend like we know everything. We have to pretend like
Yes.
we're confident, and we're not feeling
Yes.
that. But when you
Yes.
can have a friendship where you can giggle
Mm-hmm.
and be insecure with them, it's a
Yes.
gift. So I thank
Yes.
you. I thank you
Oh,
for that friendship.
absolutely. One of the joys every time we get together is just that. Being able to giggle, being able to be vulnerable, being able to, and you think you're getting something here on the show, and yeah, you are. But what you're getting is what we do all the time anyway. We bring our sensitivities to each other. We bring our vulnerabilities to each other. We share how they are showing up in our lives. And we work with healing each other by being in the energy of each other's unconditional love and each other's
Yes,
mastery. And it's just absolutely beautiful.
it is
And
beautiful.
we are so blessed. But let me tell you something. Everybody is equally blessed because what we are into when we get together is the Christ light within each and every one of us, within each of us. And that Christed light exists within everyone.
Absolutely.
Every time you sit down in prayer and meditation, every time you release, like that old Christian song, take your burdens to the Lord and leave them there. Every time you release the energy, the emotion, every time you let that little child cry, every time you let that child express whatever it is feeling in the moment and offer it the compassion that God offers it, for you are the channel for God's compassion.
Yes.
Every time you do that, that child gets stronger. That
Yes.
child gets bolder. That child recognizes its beauty and its right to exist. Because let me tell you what's at the bottom of all of this. At the bottom of all, and this is from an unwanted child. And I know there are many I have worked with who have been unexpected children as well. But when you are an unexpected child, and to some degree, everybody, at some time, the inner child wonders if it even has a right to exist. Amen?
Yes.
And so, when you allow the light of grace to touch that deep part of you repeatedly, and I'm talking about repeatedly, and the reason I'm talking about repeatedly is because it's not a one and done. The first
No.
time that child feels that light, it doesn't trust it because it's been where you've been for the last 40 years. Amen?
Yes.
You coming
Yes.
back? It's been 40 years. Do I have to wait another 40 years for you to come back?
Mhm.
No, no, no. I better not even wait another 4 days. You better be back tomorrow. You better keep your promises because nobody ever kept their promises to me. Amen?
I agree.
So,
My sister tells me that my inner
mm,
child, this is what she says about her. She says, my inner child doesn't want to talk to me. I said,
mm,
oh, give it time. Give
mm,
it time. Show it
yes.
affection. Show it
Uh-huh.
interest.
Uh-huh.
But at first, it may not fall in your lap and say, okay, here I am. It may
Exactly.
need time to trust you again.
Exactly, because it doesn't trust you. It's like, where you been? I've been hanging out here all alone. I've been lonely. I've been hurt. I've been vulnerable. I've been sick. I've been ignored. I've been diminished. And I've been hidden in a corner while you're out gallivanting around putting on a mask and a costume.
Creating stress for me.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So you have to repeatedly give it light to the degree where it will trust you. But once it trusts you, you will work miracles.
Well, one other thing I wanted to say,
Yes.
I talked about this before. The relationship has been with myself, but
Yes.
what has changed is my relationship with others as a result of this.
Yes.
I have the most heartfelt relationships now.
Yes.
I'm not guarded anymore.
Yes.
I'm open and to receive more blessings. And you talk
Mm-hmm.
about prosperity. You feel as though you're abundantly blessed because there's nothing
Mm.
barring your blessings.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
this has been the greatest time in my life. I'm in my mid 60s now, but I'm in love with myself and the world like no time I've ever had.
Yes. You are in alignment with love.
Yes.
And a large part of that has to do with healing, championing, embracing, and accepting the inner child. And when you heal, champion, embrace, and accept the inner child, that child no longer says no to the prosperity in all the ways that God offers it.
I agree.
For that child then says, yes, I deserve it. Let's have it. Let's go for it. And I want to take a break right now, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the final segment of The Miracle of Prosperity here on the New Thought Media Network.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Om Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferlin Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a super special thank you to Dr. Tracy Brown, RSCP. Thanks for being a super donor. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.
And we're back here on the New Thought Media Network with The Miracle of Prosperity. We've got Ed Miller, and we've got another question that we can explore. Carlisa wrote a question. I wonder why we think people don't see us really. And what occurred to me with that question was because we've got on armor and so do they. So we're in this kabuki dance where what we believe we need to be and project in order to be loved is facing what they believe they need to be and to project in order to be loved. And it's almost like that old series, The Jetsons on TV. Remember when Jane Jetson would go on the picture TV and she would put a mask on even because she hadn't made up her face yet? It's kind of like that's how we're relating to each other. And when you and I related, we gave an example of relating authentically from the heart because we had built an environment of loving trust and respect for each other. And how much better that feels than running around in hardware to protect ourselves. And so our task is to allow that inner child to feel so loved, so secure, so safe, and so confident that that core of love that we are feels comfortable allowing itself to be seen in the world and allowing its light to attract its prosperity.
Yes. This is all about self-awareness and introspection.
Yes.
To grow and to heal in the way we're talking about it really is becoming aware of your thinking, becoming aware of your beliefs
Yes.
without judgment.
Mhm.
And in that awareness, we are able to just love on it. There doesn't have to be
Yes.
anything wrong in feeling what we're feeling, but
Yes.
we had a habit before of
Mhm.
feeling things and then judging things. But if
Mm.
we can now just really be aware and really be aware and be available for whatever comes up, it leaves us free to allow energies to flow, to allow emotions to come up, to allow
Yes.
new point of views to be
Yes.
established. Greater
Yes.
awareness is always a new, more enlightened point of view, a more loving point of
Yes.
view. But we're able to
Yes.
have access to that because our minds are not so problematic and troublesome.
Yes.
They're more
Absolutely.
available. Our
Yes.
hearts are open.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why creating that safe space. In chapter 9 of my book, The Soul of Prosperity, we have a whole chapter on creating a safe space where we can become aware of our emotions, accept our emotions, accept ourselves for having our emotions, creating a non judgment zone for that so that we can become aware of them and heal anything that is unlike the energy of love and let love in. And that's one of the things we do. So what are you up to these days, Ed?
Well, I'm teaching a lot now.
Yes?
I'm almost teaching every week in the month of
Mm.
May because I plan on take some vacation in June. So
Don't
I've
take
got
too
a
much
number.
vacation because we want you at the Tacoma Metaphysical Chapel. I'm calling you out in front of everybody
Well,
when you're
we'll
gonna come
talk about
speak.
that. We'll
Okay.
talk about that.
Okay.
But I'm enjoying myself. I'm teaching actually on this concept of called non-judgmental.
Okay.
So, and I'm loving to teach it because people need to become aware of how when we're judgmental, how contracted we are. And I'm
Yes.
also intrigued with this whole idea of righteous indignation. How we're
Mm.
whatever we're believing is true and it has to be true, and everybody else is wrong.
Mm.
How that is such a distasteful and elusive lie,
Mm.
and how we have to start to catch ourselves in our righteous indignation
Mhm.
and give each other space to
Mhm.
connect in a more intimate way. So that's what I'm enjoying right now. I'm going to be teaching for the next couple of weeks on non-judgmental awareness.
Beautiful.
Well, what
Beautiful.
about you? What have you been up to, and what are your plans in the near future?
Well, I've got some plans that specifically address some of the things that we've talked about today. Beginning tomorrow for 6 weeks, or every Monday at 7:30, I've got a new class that's beginning. The title of the class is Spirit Speaks on Self-Forgiveness.
Hmm.
Spirit will guide us with prayers, with powerful healing energy, and with individual prescriptions based on everyone's questions on how you can move into a deeper state of self love,
Love it.
self forgiveness, and self awareness. And that begins tomorrow evening And since so many people do it virtually, there is still space available for people who want to participate in the real-time class. It's on Facebook Live, it's on Zoom as well, so that even if you can't participate real-time, you get the recordings, you observe the discussions, you feel the energy, and you still take the class. So that's on Mondays, beginning tomorrow for 6 weeks. Spirit Speaks on self-forgiveness. Because as a lesson 121 and 122 says, forgiveness offers everything I want. Forgiveness is the key to happiness. But that forgiveness begins with us being in a state of forgiveness for ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So then on
You know,
Thursdays,
I
I'm doing
teach
another
people
class.
that all forgiveness is self-forgiveness first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so then on Thursdays, I'm doing another class. The class I'm doing on Thursday is silencing your inner saboteurs. Because we have aspects of us within us. The inner child, the inner judge, the inner critic, the inner saint, the inner sinner. And those aspects of ourselves can sabotage the good that we desire and deserve.
Absolutely.
And quite often, these inner saboteurs go undetected. So this 6-week interactive experiential workshop gives us chances to learn how to recognize the inner saboteurs that have been working in the background without us even knowing it, how to bring them out, how to listen to them, how to neutralize them, how to give them a new truth so that they work for us instead of against us.
I love it.
Because, you know, that energy is actually powerful energy. But that energy has been trained to sabotage our good. What if we could retrain it to enhance our good? So silencing your inner saboteurs, redeploy. This class helps us to redeploy this energy so that it can help magnify our good. And if anybody wants more information on these classes, check out my website, www.revjimwebb.com, or text me at 202-253-6009. So check out my website, www.revjimwebb.com, or text me at 202-253-6009. So that's what I'm up to. And of course, every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're here on the Miracle of Prosperity and the New Thought Media Network. We're so glad you came with us. Everyone have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next week. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. on the New Thought Media Network. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Ed. Everyone have a good evening on the New Thought Media Network. Good night.
Good night.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.